All right, we are in our last episode of our four-part series with my friend Derek Videll. We've been talking all things social media and social media growth, which is a massive topic, especially in today's day and age, because there is so much talk about social media content and how to create it in a way that makes a significant difference in the audience that you're trying to reach, the lives of the people that you're touching, and your community overall. In this episode, we will be discussing the important analytics to pay attention to in order to understand how your content is performing. We're also going to cover which social media metrics are the most important and what it means to go viral. We're talking about and sharing some tips on how to take your social media data and analytics and optimize it for success. And lastly, we're going to be talking about the important role mindset plays in podcasting, social media, and showing up. So let's get ready to learn about the latest and greatest when it comes to social media analytics with my friend Derek. Derek, thank you for joining me for this very last episode on our four-part series. For our listeners today, you definitely want to go back and catch the last three because there's so much value delivered in here. And I think you're going to learn a lot about using and leveraging social media to promote your podcast. So welcome back, Derek, to the podcast.
I'm ready for this. We got fourth installment and it's going to be the best one.
I know, I'm really excited. We're going to bring it home with this one. So let's talk all about measuring the success of your podcast using social media. It's very clear that podcasters will use social media to promote their podcast. Obviously, it makes a lot of sense. Like, why would you not? But how can you measure the impact and the impact that you're creating by posting on social media? So I think the best place to start, and you tell me what you think, but maybe talking about like the importance of understanding and being able to track your social media metrics. Like, where do you even look to understand how your content is performing?
It's difficult to see like the amount of link clicks that you get like on a link and a podcast description. There's a lot of data like that is not known. But I think beyond just the numbers, you want to make sure that your podcast listeners are translating to actual conversations on Instagram. And if they're not DMing you, whether it be praising an episode or asking a question or doing something else that you're participating in, that's really how to gauge the success of it. So that's why like YouTube, it's so nice that you get the comments, because someone like smashing the like button versus writing a couple paragraphs on all the value they got, you know how much more valuable that is, and that you know that it like your whole point's getting through. So do a lot of things on your podcast where you invite people to not just follow you, but maybe DM you about a specific thing. Make it a lot easier for that conversation to happen than even just saying DM me if you have any questions. Like, that's totally fine to say, but if you ever have like a very specific thing that you want them to message you about. One time I did like a giveaway where I had like there's a secret code in the middle of one of my episodes, and you have to listen to the whole thing to hear where I
love that.
Unleash the code in the episode. And then that was like how they could enter the giveaway for my coaching or whatever. But it's like the amount of people who participated in that was like a lot more reflective of like an engaged audience. The best actual numbers though that you can get are usually in the Apple Podcasts like dashboard. So the podcastconnect.apple.com, I believe is what it is. You want to make sure your show's linked on there. I'm on Buzzsprout for my publishing platform. I know all the platforms I've been on Anchor before like have slightly different stats that they give you. And unfortunately, I even have a disconnect between my Buzzsprout stats and my Apple stats. But I believe the Apple ones are going to be the most accurate, and they're what the Apple rankings are based on. So if the main goal is like, what numbers do I have to pay attention to rank higher in the charts? The Apple Podcast numbers are what you should be going off of. And on their website, they say that their algorithm is only based on, I believe it was three things. The first one is percentage listen to time of your show. I think the other one is, it might be the click-through ratio on your podcast album artwork. They want to make sure you're not faking any plays too. It looks like they have some kind of like shadow ban on a podcast if you were to do something of the sort. But But you
There's
can
all
check out their
kinds.
website. I don't
Yeah,
remember.
yeah, yeah.
It says on their
I'll put
web,
the link
like
in the
on
show notes.
Apple Podcast website, it says like what their algorithm is looking for.
Yeah. I'll post a link to that in the show notes so people can listen, or so people can read it. But when it comes to like social media specifically, what kind of metrics are you telling, your clients, or you're telling people to pay attention to see like the benefit of being on social media, and if your content is resonating, or you know what I mean? Because I've heard before that I don't remember what the app was that I used. I really have to think about it and put in the show notes. But the engagement rate, so like you can have a lot of followers, but your engagement rate could still be really low. And
Got it.
typically, yeah, and like typically they'll say like if you have, I don't know, basic numbers, like 1,000 followers, like 1% of your followers you can expect to convert over, like that kind of stuff.
Got it. So yeah, I answered more before of like, you want to make sure that this, your podcasts are coming over to social media like this, base it off of that success, the DMs. And then the other way around, social media to podcast, it is still making sure you're having a lot of conversations with your audience. So I would have some kind of DM strategy where you either DM people who like your posts or that just followed you, so that you can actually figure out where they came from, what episode they heard, what they've loved. I mean, I asked people like what their favorite episode was recently, and like the answers were like actually like quite the surprise to me. So, make sure you're actually having conversations to get more conclusive data than the numbers will allude to. But as far as measuring the success of your like general Instagram account, which it doesn't matter if it's coming from the podcast or whatever, is just your profile visits to follower conversion ratio is one thing to pay attention to. So if you go into your insights and you see how many people visited my profile last week versus turned into followers, there is one way that the stat is skewed, is that if someone already follows you and visits your profile, then obviously like they already follow you, so going to kind of mess up with the number. But if that is over 20%, you're doing really, really great. If that number is like 10 to 20, you're okay. Under 10% is where it's like, even if your posts go viral, your account doesn't convert followers. So it doesn't even matter, right? Like, hey, I went viral. I didn't like,
or you get like followers that are like not at all. Like if you go viral on a post that you didn't like, that isn't fully related to like your niche. Let's say you did something more like lifestyle and like not so much like, for my sake, it would be podcasting, and that post goes viral. That's a ton of followers that have nothing to do with your actual business or like the contents of your Instagram channel. But I'm glad that you're looking at it through both ways. And it's interesting too, that you're saying, about asking for that engagement on your stories or in your posts and stuff like that. I think it's a way a lot of the times that people will forget to engage their listeners and to check in with their followers and their community, right? The biggest thing that is so important, I think, especially in 2023, is that idea of building that community and making sure that you're building community around whatever it is that you're creating, right? Like people have tons of resources, people have tons of courses and programs and memberships. Like there's so much, but how do you deliver that value, and how are you tapping into your community exactly like you're saying, by like asking them a question that they can answer? I think it's so valuable and very often overlooked, right? Like even a yes or no poll. Like, did you like the episode this week? Yes or no?
Yeah, it can be simple like that. Getting them on a phone call, though, is still so much more revealing. You can have a phone call with one podcast listener that will teach you more than like looking at like how 1,000 people clicked around on your website.
Totally.
You'll learn a lot more of what's going on.
I love that. Now, when you look at the term "go viral," what does like virality mean to you? What does it mean to go viral?
The definition is that it's content that gets rapidly shared, and the engagement metric that will always mean the most in any social media algorithm is the share, more so than the like, the comment, the save. The share will tell it that it's good content, and then obviously there's just like one extra person that post is directly going to. And when you get a post from a friend, like it's almost always like yeah, I see why you sent me this, right? Like they're good at knowing what to send you. Like
exactly.
Rarely. Everyone maybe has that one friend that sends you memes that just like never hit, but for the most part, like they're pretty good at knowing like if it would resonate with you. So there has to be a reason to share it. And that's why sometimes where you see these people who just do like the same post over and over and they go viral, like it's because it has a share factor to it. So like one post that I see someone doing right now is they have like a black coffee mug, or it's a clear glass and it's filled with black coffee, and then they'll pour cream in it, which will then reveal the Sharpie text on the side of the mug, right? So they
Yeah,
had written in black text, and it will say like, send this to someone who's a great mom, or send this to someone who's the best friend. Like they're just making it like, oh, I'm going to send this to, they're just giving them a reason to be like, oh, I'm going to brighten up my friend's day.
exactly.
And they're not just saying like tag a friend, right? Because that's like the friend's like, I'm gonna kill you for tagging me, right? But it's like, oh, I tagged you because I'm trying to appreciate you, like, is the whole reason for
Exactly.
that post. So there's like the tactical side of it, but of how you can create like a share thing, but that's not
Hmm.
necessary. Like ultimately, if your content is good enough to be shared, is where it's going to breach that.
I
The
love
the
that.
one other thing I think is common with all viral content, I talked about, I think in episode 2 of this series, is that if it does stumble on someone's feed that isn't your ideal follower, do they instantly skip it? Because otherwise they will, them showing an average watch percentage of like less than 1% or whatever throws off the average a lot, right? Like those people. So the example I gave before is like, if I gave a very specific social media tip and I use lingo, I'll do the example before is like in sales, actually. Like if I say like, hey guys, here's how to do a push away close.
Hmm.
What you want to do is whenever the client's like on the fence, but you can tell they're interested, say something like this, and like I'm real salesy about it, and like salesmen will get it, but like the random guy that's a cashier that wasn't looking to see this at all, like as soon as he sees like, here's how to do a push away close, like as my like hook, he's just like off, right? You can't
Yeah.
go viral unless like this has an entertainment aspect to people outside of your audience as
Hmm.
well. So if
Super important.
if I would be like, here's a sales trick on like how the guy at the movie theaters upsold me popcorn. Now it's like a story, right? Like
Yeah.
that is gonna do better with like a general audience.
I love that. No, I think that's so good. I think that's such a good tip. And I think it's really important because it's like, not everything is for everyone, but also making sure you just said the keyword there, like it has a story. If something has a story, regardless of what it is, even if maybe it's not someone's cup of tea, you still maybe give it a like or whatever. And you're like, okay, cool. Yeah. Like I get the story behind that, even though it doesn't really fully resonate with me, but I still like it. Like good for you. Like you go Glen Coco, like here you go.
Mm-hmm.
You can have the like, there you go. So, okay. When you've now figured out all of your metrics, all of your data, you have all of your data in front of you, how can you take it, one tip or like two tips to take this data and optimize it so that you can continue to grow your social media account and continue to grow your podcast reach by proxy?
If we're just talking the Instagram account with like this follower conversion thing, like you can look at this on anywhere, I guess. But if that number is not good, like that is the first number that you have to fix, because even if people do find you, it's not converting at the rate that you want. That
Mm-hmm.
number is most influenced by your top 9 posts and your bio. So they're going to glance at those top 9 posts, and then from there, like they might even go further, right? But like those ones will have the biggest impact, and they want to see that it resonates with that, like all the posts resonate with them. Like, so basically why a follow happens is they want to see what you're going to post next. So that like, that's why like the part, like
Love that.
follow for part 2s and stuff like that works
Yeah.
so well. Right.
Yeah.
But if they love pictures of dogs and they see you post pictures of dogs and cats and gerbils, they probably won't follow you because they only want like part of that content. So
Exactly.
it also means that they want to see more than at least 90% plus of what you're about to post. So if you start posting like too wide, that's also why your follower conversion might be down as far as like your content side of things. If it looks like it's like not all this content is what I want to see, then that's where they would rule you out on that side of things.
Mm-hmm.
On the bio
Love
side
that.
of things, we talked about in a previous episode how the end of your bio should be why that person should really want to click the link. Don't say play latest episode, say listen to how to get 10,000 Instagram followers in 2023 below.
Mm-hmm.
Like it will get more clicks. But then like I like to do a simple 3 bullet point bio format. So that third bullet point bio is why they'd want to click the link. And then the first 2 bios, I say what kind of like free value they would expect on the account
Mhm.
and why I'm credible to give it. So like I say, like the top rated Instagram marketing podcast is my like credibility line. And
Yeah.
these can be in any order. And then I also can say like done with you social media ads. Right. So like, okay, like I like learn how to run social media ads yourself. It
Mhm.
would be what you can learn from my account. I might switch that to that.
I think you
So
should.
like the first line could say, learn how to run social media ads for your company yourself. And then the
Yeah.
second line is like, host of the top rated Instagram marketing podcast. So
Yeah.
what value you're going to get, why you're credible to get it. Those are the two statements that you can make that will have the biggest impact on that metric right there.
I love
From
that.
there, you want to be getting over 1,000 views on almost all of your reels. And of course, like if you have a ton of followers, like this number will change. But even if you're like if you're anywhere under like, we'll say like 50,000 followers, like you would want to see like at least 1,000 from each one. Like even if you're a smaller account, that you really can be getting those kind of numbers. And that's just all comes down to the hook. You look at each number one at a time, and then you point to the biggest cause of that number. So that's kind of like, you have to know, like, what does the low views mean? Does it mean bad hashtags? No, it means bad hook.
Right.
And like, it could mean the little things, but like, look at the big thing and point there. Right. And then from there, the next metric is on that post, you'd want to see a likes to reach ratio. Or I'll say engagement to reach ratio. So like a combination of the comments plus the likes plus the saves divided by the reach. You'd want to see a minimum of 5% to say like, that was a good post, good job. It probably didn't go viral, but it probably went to a lot of your followers if you hit that like 5% mark. If you hit the 10% mark, that's where you're going to start seeing reels that will reach 5 to 20K view range. And if you get like the 20%, I don't think the Instagram algorithm in particular is based around this ratio of like likes to reach, because it's hackable. It's way too hackable. All you'd have to do is pay for like bots to go viral.
Exactly.
But I do think that when a post does very well, meaning it has high average watch time and other metrics that are less hackable that it's based on, it usually coincides with that it got a 15 to 25% likes to reach ratio. And that number is most influenced by the last couple seconds of your video. If you're doing a podcast clip, you're killing it, and then it just ends halfway through a sentence, that doesn't translate to like, you delivered, thank you. Like, so it has to like end, like we talked about on a previous episode, conclusively and on a good point.
I love that. That is all so tangible. And I love that our listener right now gets to just take all of this and actually implement it into what they're doing, because you are so clear in what you're saying right now. And I think it's so important to really look at those numbers, because it's great to create content. It's lovely to create videos, and it's like, whatever. But if you don't know how those numbers are translating and how those metrics actually are impacting, you could be missing something huge. You know what I mean? And with one small tweak, one little change could be like a huge difference between having 500 views on a reel or having 20,000 views on a reel, right?
Yeah.
It's massive. Now, I want to ask you, and maybe we'll close with this thought here, not overly, related to the analytics and like the metrics piece, but it kind of is, because I think that having the right mindset when you're creating your content and like, the desire and the drive to make sure that you're showing up for yourself and for your brand, for your business, for your podcast, all of that. It's so key. And like, there wouldn't really be any analytics without having the mindset behind it. So can you speak on that just a little bit?
Yeah. If I record content on a day that my mindset is off versus like I'm in a great mood, it does turn out differently for sure.
Totally.
And that's why in entrepreneurship, like everything matters. Your personal growth, your health, how much sleep you got, what you eat, everything matters. And I kind of like just life being like that. I don't want like, oh yeah, no matter what I eat, if I go to the gym or not, if I have any kind of impact outside of like my 9 to 5 or traditional job, I get paid the same. Like, of course, like reading and stuff like that to make you a better person can get you more like a promotion. But I think there's just, then you can hit a dead end job and you can get fired. I don't know. It's just like, there's not as much of a direct correlation as I like in entrepreneurship. So everything matters. And I'm someone who has a really analytical mind, and it plays out really well for me in business, but then sometimes in like relationships and just other aspects of life that like you can't really analyze. It's just kind of like things happen for a reason, right? Like it's like the conclusion you have to get to, like it can get to me. So you really got to know yourself. I just came out with a podcast on this, that your success in entrepreneurship is directly correlated more than any other stat to how well you know yourself. If I know that me doing this podcast with you and you talking me up and asking me questions, and I feel like I did a good job, I'm going to be in a good mood after this. Like if I wanted to like come out and record some videos, it would go well. If I do a sales call and I close them, I'm going to record well after. So part of it is like, put your schedule in a way where you know you're going to be on at that time and ready to record. If you know that having a tea beforehand and a cold shower, totally great hack, by the way, for like making sure your mind is fully alert, and you do this and you do this, then you record, like that puts you in the best state of mind. Like you have to figure out these things about yourself. But I think really if you root all these little fears on certain days, like this day I was stressed about this, this day I was stressed about this, a lot of it, I had this like epiphany recently, is like you searching for external validation in some way. So if you are like scared to record the content, it means that maybe you have a specific person in mind that you think is going to see this post. Maybe you have like a crush at that time. You're like, I know they follow me. Like, and it's like, now you're screwing up my business post, because I'm like, it's got to be funny to her too. Like, it's
yeah,
like,
exactly.
You're
like, don't watch it. I'm just kidding.
I know, right? Like, let me hide this post from the one person. So like, make sure you always have like your dream follower in mind. But a lot of times, like the imposter syndrome, like if it could creep in for me, when I start to talk to some people, if I have a good coaching call, then it's like, all right, like, you know what you're doing, right?
Exactly.
But if you're looking for like validation in any way, like I don't know. I don't know exactly how to expand on this because it's a new topic.
No, I get what you're saying. I get what you're saying, because it's hard, because I think as human beings, like, my whole Happiness Happens podcast is pretty much based around a lot of these topics. We talk a lot about self-growth, the whole self-love, self-help, self-growth journey, what happiness means to you, like all of that, right? And when you're not in the right space and like headspace, and when you're not able to be, I think if you're not able to be vulnerable with yourself, you're not able to be vulnerable with other people. And I think it creates all these walls, and you build up all these walls around you, and that directly impacts your business. You know what I mean? It absolutely does, because then you're sitting in this spot and you feel shitty. You know what I mean? Sorry, pardon my French. Hopefully there's no kids in the car. But you know what I mean? Like you feel this certain way, and then it spirals, right? I don't feel good enough. I'm not worthy enough. I'm not all of these things, right? So that is just so important. And I'm so glad that you brought it up and that you touched on it, because, even when, for our listeners today, like when you and I first were supposed to record this series, I messaged you before and I said, Derek, I can't do this series today. I said, I've had a week and I will not be able to show up for the content in the way that it needs to happen. And like, we could have still done it and it would have been probably not very good. You know what I mean? And then it's a disservice to the people who, follow, but then it's also a disservice to the guests that you have. You know what I mean? Like you want to show up in a way that is highlighting someone in all of the incredible things that they are and do. So if you came on my podcast and I wasn't feeling it, I've just set you up for failure.
In a way, unless I can flip your mindset around. I always like to think I can.
But I mean not in a way of like you being able to like not being able to deliver on this stuff, because you always will, because like it's you know what I mean? And you're coming prepared, but the interview can fall flat. You know what I mean? Or the right questions are not asked. And like, you could have highlighted something else that would have been like super amazing, but I didn't think to ask you that question, So it's like, I completely agree with you. That's more what I mean. Not you specifically delivering, because you just always deliver all the time.
Like an example for me, like when I interview interviewed and I was off. Like, and I thought I can't watch this freaking interview back. Is actually when I interviewed John Lee Dumas, because I was still like a newer podcaster. And like, I was going through enough like crap in my life, like whether it be like financial or relationship, like I just like still, I didn't have so much success in this to cling on to yet. I still don't really like to like just, oh yeah, well, look at you have like this size podcast or you've made this much money. Like imposter syndrome will always still come up. And it also kind of is a sign of like you're surrounding yourself with people who are doing better than you. Like that's where it originally comes up, which is also a good tip. So that's one of my ways that I try to rule out imposter syndrome. Maybe it's just because I'm surrounding myself with the right people is where it's coming from.
Which is a huge deal. It makes such an impact. It makes such an impact.
Absolutely. So with the John Lee Dumas interview, like how that relates to the validation thing that I was saying before, like on this interview, like I can't watch myself because like I'm starstruck by him in ways that are like not good, not treating him like a normal person because I'm like looking for his validation in a way. And I just like am out of my own head. I think all regrets when it comes to like social regrets come down to either you weren't being yourself or you weren't being fully present. And like, I wasn't being fully present because I was thinking like, what is he thinking about me right now? And like, what is this going to look like later? And everything like that. I wasn't like completely tuned into like listening to him. So like, I probably didn't even listen to his answers that well when he was like I was just like more thinking about like, what's my next question and where to go with it.
What if it goes dead? Like, what if we don't, what if it goes quiet?
Yeah. And all of that is just, it makes it so you can't speak smoothly and deliver correctly and everything. So it really comes down to you get to a point where you stop needing validation. And the easiest way to get that is like you get enough validation to like just kind of rule it out where it's like, well, I've had this success and whatever. But it is achievable beforehand where if you're online to just truly provide as much value as possible, then you're not really seeking the extra validation. Like if you were like following some like we've all followed like some like comedian or something that's like trying to make it big and they might like just I don't know say some crap and
and you're like, what did you just say? You know what I mean? It's like
they're looking for validation, and desperation is one of the least persuasive emotions. So it really is just, man, you gotta be yourself, but you gotta own yourself. It is.
I love that.
The next part of it.
I love that so much. This was such an amazing conversation. Derek, thank you so much for joining me on my podcast for the last 4 episodes. You have just given our listeners so much value and just so much perspective. And there's so much to learn in these 4 episodes that we've done. So if you're just joining us for this one by chance, make sure you go back and you listen to the other 3 because I know you're going to learn a lot. So honestly, thank you so, so, so much. Okay, before we say goodbye for the very last time of our 4-part series, can you just tell our listeners how they can get more of you? I know I have it in the outro of the episode, but I want to hear from you how they can reach out to you.
Start on Instagram. Find me on there at Social Bamboo. There's an underscore at the end, but you can just check out my bio, whatever I got going on at the time will be like the 3rd bullet point, but like I got a free course. You can find me on YouTube, all that. I'd start with the free course because that is a strategy that you're not going to learn anywhere else. And that's like the most amount of value that I have for free. So that's linked in my Instagram bio.
Awesome. I'll put the links in the show notes as well, just so our listeners can access it easier, just in case. But ideally, they would go over to your Instagram, give you a follow.
Yes, do that. DM me. But it's been an absolute pleasure, Simona. And you've asked me a lot of questions that I have never got before. And I was super excited to answer when I saw them on the list. So it's been great.
Oh, I love that. There's like literally no better music to my ears than asking you questions that are out of the box. So I love that. Thank you so much for joining Derek and I for this conversation. I hope you gained a little nugget of knowledge, a little piece of wisdom that you can take with you and up your social media game. If you'd like to connect with Derek, you can find him on his website, which is socialbamboo.com, on Instagram at socialbamboo_, on Twitter at Derek Videll, and on TikTok, Social Bamboo. He also has a ton of free resources on his website, and he hosts a podcast called Social Media Marketing Podcast. So be sure to go and check out all of his links, connect with him further, and let us know what your biggest takeaway of this conversation was. We want to know, we want to hear from you. Send us a DM on Instagram, and honestly, it'll make our day. So thank you so much. And be sure to leave this podcast a rating and review where you are listening. I would be so, so, so grateful. I love reading your reviews. I read every single one. It like genuinely and sincerely makes my entire day. So with that in mind, thanks so much for joining us. I will see you on the next one.